We see in today's reading Jesus before Herod, just before he's sent to be crucified. Now, Luke is the only gospel to record this event, but its context is extremely important to the context of the gospel story and to our lives today. Let's jump into the text and see what it says. We first see Herod being very glad to see Jesus because Herod has long desired to see him, and Herod wanted to see a sign from Jesus. I think we lose the emphasis here from our English translation. To say that Herod was very glad to see Jesus, what's the understatement of the century? All we need to do is to go back to the birth of Jesus and see Herod attempting to trick the wise men into bringing him Jesus' location. And when his plan is thwarted, we see Herod butchering every male child under 2 in the city of Bethlehem. This would not be the first individuals that Herod would kill, nor would it be the last. Herod would go on to slaughter thousands of people due to his jealousy, his need for power, and ultimately his fear. Fear, you say? How could Herod be afraid? He was one of the most powerful individuals in the world. When we come down to it, Herod was actually petrified of the Jews and was in constant fear for his life and his legacy. Let's unpack Herod for a bit and gain some insight. The Caesar of the time was Mark Antony, and due to a series of key political moves, he appoints Herod as king of the Jews and in charge of the land surrounding Jerusalem and beyond. Herod was a keen student of the biblical scriptures. He was incredibly intelligent, and he was extremely athletic, winning an Olympic wreath himself. He had it all, except for one thing. Herod was not a Jew. Herod was from Idumea and was an Edomite, or a descendant of Esau. And being an expert of the scriptures, he knew that in Numbers 24, as Balaam was blessing Israel, he foretold that a true king of the Jews would come as Messiah and would rule over Edom. Herod knew that Obadiah would later prophesy that Israel would reign and that Edom would be destroyed to the very last person. And as Herod was an Edomite, he knew the end game. And then wise men come to him. They proclaim that the king of the Jews had been born and asked him where the true king of the Jews was so that they could worship him. You begin to see where Herod's fear brings him to overwhelming evil. He must wipe out this king of the Jews to save his own neck. Quick aside here. How often do we try to change a future that's so set in stone? How much effort do we give to attempting to make our own way? Herod's actions aren't unique. Satan himself knows of Jesus' status, and he knows that his days are numbered. And even he is attempting to rewrite the prophecies to find a way out by trying to get rid of Messiah. And now, the king of the Jews is before Herod, ready to be crucified. Herod is more than glad. He sees an opportunity to rewrite the history books and show the world who is truly the king of the Jews. With Jesus dead, there will now be no doubt who the king is. How could Jesus be a king anyway? He who was born in a cave meant for sheep, birthed among piles of manure, soot, and filth. That can't be a king. He, Herod, has 7 palaces to choose from that are more opulent than anything that the world has ever seen. His Herodian, just outside Bethlehem, towers over the city. That shows the world who the king of the Jews really is. The king is the one with all the money. The king is the one with all the servants. The king is the one with all the worldly power. Herod is king, not this poor beggar that won't even speak for himself. The shoot of Jesse won't overpower him. And Herod sure thought that he had put an end to it. And for a while, probably, it looked like it would work. As Jesus was crucified, died, and was buried, the crowds quickly went back to their ordinary lives. The crowds even mocked Jesus on the cross, spitting in his face and testing him to show his power. And I'm sure that many shifted their eyes back to Herod as king of the Jews. We know where the story ends. Who is remembered, Jesus or Herod? Every Christian in the world today finds root in 12 disciples and a handful of women who paid the ultimate price because they knew who their king truly was. Herod would end up dying of an excruciating illness, alone, with no one to mourn his death. So who is the King of the Jews? Who is our king? Will we shift our eyes to the magnificent palace of money, greed, fame, and worldly desire? Or will we shift our eyes to a dirty cave with a baby in a manger who will grow up teaching us that sacrifice is the ultimate prize, that loving others is the key to an abundant life? Your answer to that question will determine aspects of your life, such as happiness, fulfillment, understanding, peace, and even salvation. The choice is yours. Who do you say is king?